The first glance. The great alien academy stood like a shining tower in the middle of the city. Its walls were made of glowing stone, and at night, the lights inside looked like stars trapped behind glass. It was a place where many species came, together to study, but humans were still rare here. He was one of those few. A young human traveler, not from a rich family, but curious about the galaxy. He had arrived only weeks ago, and though the alien halls welcomed him, he always felt eyes following his steps. Whispers followed him too. Some admired the courage of a human among so many alien kinds. Others thought it strange. A few even hated. One evening, he wandered through the garden inside the academy. The garden was not like Earth's. The trees had silver leaves that glowed softly, and flowers floated in the air like tiny stars. The air smelled sweet, and strange crystal lamps shone in the corners. It was a quiet place where students often came to rest. That was when he saw her. She was sitting alone on a stone bench under the glow of a crystal tree. Her skin shimmered faintly, like water under the moonlight. Her hair was long, flowing with colors that shifted between blue and silver. Her eyes, he could not look away from them. They looked like galaxies, deep and endless, with tiny sparks of light moving inside. She was reading a glowing scroll, her delicate fingers moving gently across the words. Without meaning to, he stopped walking. His gaze locked on her. Something about her presence was different, not just beautiful. There was something powerful yet fragile in her, something that made his heart beat faster. For a long moment, he just stood there, staring. And then she noticed. Her eyes lifted slowly from the scroll. When she saw him, her brows lowered, confused. Her cheeks changed color, faint pink rising on her pale face. It was a sign not often seen in her kind. She looked straight at him and asked in a soft but firm voice, "Why are you staring at me?" Her words cut through the silence like a blade. He froze. He could have looked away, pretended he had not been staring, but the truth slipped from his lips before he could stop it. "Because you're mind-blowing." The words were simple, almost clumsy, but they carried a weight of truth. His voice was low, honest, without a hint of mockery. She blinked, shocked. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. Among her people, compliments were rare, especially direct ones. To them, emotions were dangerous, bonds were sacred, and such words were never thrown lightly. Her cheeks grew warmer, glowing now, with a soft blush. She turned her face slightly as if hiding, but her eyes betrayed her. They kept flicking back to him. The human suddenly felt nervous. He had not planned those words. Maybe he had broken some rule. Maybe he had insulted her without meaning to. He opened his mouth to speak again, to explain, but before he could, she stood up. "You should not say things like that," she whispered. Her voice was unsteady and her hands trembled slightly. She did not know why those words struck her heart so deeply. He frowned. "Why not? It's true." Her eyes widened. The honesty in his tone made her chest tighten. She had grown up surrounded by formality, by cold discipline, by rules that told her what to feel and when to feel it. But this human, he spoke freely, without fear. Her heart raced. She did not even notice that her legs were weak, or that her blush deepened. Silence stretched between them. The silver leaves rustled above, glowing faintly. The floating flowers drifted slowly in the air. Somewhere far away, voices of other students echoed. But here it felt like the world had narrowed to just the two of them. She finally whispered, almost too soft to hear, "You are strange, human." He gave a small smile. "Maybe. But so are you." For the first time in her life, she laughed. It was quiet, uncertain, but it slipped from her lips before she could stop it. She covered her mouth quickly, her eyes darting around to see if anyone else had noticed. But someone had noticed. From the shadows of the garden, another figure watched. Cold eyes narrowed, filled with disapproval. A guard of her clan, tasked to keep an eye on her. He saw the human, saw her blush, saw the laughter, and he clenched his fists. The girl felt a shiver run through her. She looked over her shoulder and thought she saw a shadow move. Fear touched her heart. She quickly looked back at the human. Her lips pressed tight. "I should go," she said quickly, her voice tense now. He frowned again, sensing the change. "Wait, did I do something wrong?" She shook her head but did not answer. Instead, she walked away, her steps quick, almost desperate. The glow of her hair faded into the silver trees until she disappeared into the night. The human stood alone in the garden, confused, his heart heavy. He did not understand why she left so suddenly. All he knew was that in that one short moment something had passed between them, something he could not name but could not forget. And in the shadows, the watcher whispered to himself, "This must not be allowed." The garden grew silent again, but the echo of her blush and his words lingered in the air, a bond already forming, one that would soon shake both their worlds. Whispers in the hall. The next morning the academy was buzzing with whispers. Long corridors stretched like rivers of light, filled with students of many worlds. Some floated instead of walking, some had wings, and some moved with strange glowing limbs. Among them, the human walked quietly, carrying his bag, his eyes on the floor. He could feel it. The stairs, the low voices, the laughter that stopped whenever he turned. Something had spread. He did not know that his short meeting in the garden had already become a story. Students who had seen him with her last night had told others. Words traveled faster than light in a place like this. By morning, every hall carried the tale. The human stared at her, she blushed, and she laughed. For her people, a blush was no small thing. It was the beginning of something sacred, something dangerous. As he moved through the hall, he heard pieces of conversation. "Did you hear?" The human dared to speak to her. "They say she changed color, pink." "That's impossible, she would never." "But I saw it with my own eyes." The voices followed him. He kept walking, trying not to show fear, but inside his chest his heart pounded. Why did this matter so much to them? Why was everyone suddenly watching him as if he had broken a law? Across the hall, she walked with her own people. Her steps were graceful, but her face was tense. Her friends surrounded her, whispering questions. "Is it true?" one of them asked, her silver eyes wide. "You spoke with a human?" another pressed, her tone sharp. "And you laughed?" A third one gasped as if it were a crime. Her cheeks burned again. She looked down, unable to answer. Yes, she had laughed. Yes, she had felt something she could not explain. But she could not admit it. Not here, not in front of them. "Silence," she finally said, her voice low but firm. "It was nothing. He is just a human. Do not waste your breath." Her friends exchanged looks, but they nodded. Still, she could feel their suspicion. The bond was already growing inside her, whether she wanted it or not. Her heart was betraying her, and no one must know. Later, during study hours, she sat at her desk in the crystal library. The room was filled with floating books and glowing scrolls. Students whispered spells and formulas, the sound of learning like a quiet storm. But she could not focus. Her mind replayed the moment again and again. The human's words. His honest eyes, the way her chest had tightened when he spoke. "Because you're mind-blowing." Her hand trembled as she held her pen. She had never heard words like that. Among her people, praise was rare. Emotions were hidden. But this human, he spoke like emotions were air, like they were natural, like they were not forbidden at all. She pressed her lips tight, trying to shake the thought. Yet when she looked up, she saw him across the room. He sat alone at a desk, struggling with alien symbols on a scroll. His brow was furrowed, his hand messy with ink. For a moment, she almost smiled. But then, a shadow fell over him. A tall figure leaned against his desk, blocking the light. It was one of her clan guards, the same who had watched them last night. His eyes were cold as he looked down at the human. "You should stay away from her," the guard said softly, his voice like iron. The human froze. He looked up, meeting the guard's stare. "I didn't do anything," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "You spoke to her. That is enough." The human clenched his fists under the table. He wanted to fight back, to say he had the right to speak to anyone, but the weight of the guard's presence pressed against him like a storm. Slowly, the guard leaned closer. His whisper sharp like a blade. "If you do not step back, human, you will not survive here." With that, the guard turned and walked away, leaving silence in his wake. The human sat frozen for a moment, his pulse racing. He glanced across the room and saw her watching. Her eyes were wide, her face pale. She had heard every word. Their eyes met, and for a second, time stopped. Her heart screamed to stand up, to tell the guard he was wrong, to defend the human. But fear held her still. Her clan was powerful and she was bound by their laws. To defy them meant exile, or worse. She looked away, her chest heavy with guilt. The human lowered his head again, pretending to write. But his mind was storming. What had he done to deserve such threats? All he had done was speak the truth. Why was honesty so dangerous in this place? As the hours passed, the whispers grew louder. Every corner of the academy carried his name and hers. By the evening, he could feel it. The line had already been drawn. He was no longer just a human student. He, too, was now the center of attention, the center of suspicion. And she was torn in two, between duty to her people and the strange, unstoppable pull toward him. When night came, she lay in her chamber, staring at the ceiling of crystal lights. She whispered to herself, trembling, "Why does my heart betray me?" Far away in his own small room, he sat by the window, staring at the alien stars. He clenched his jaw and whispered, "Why do they fear this so much?" Neither of them knew that the bond had already begun to weave its threads. Neither of them knew that eyes in the dark were planning their next move. And as the academy slept, danger grew closer with every breath. The secret meeting night returned to the academy, and with it came silence. The great halls were dark except for the glow of crystal lamps. Most students slept, their chambers filled with dreams of home. But for him, sleep did not come. He lay, awake in his small room, staring at the alien stars outside his window. The words of the guard still burned in his mind. "Stay away from her, human, or you will not survive here." He clenched his fists. Why should speaking to someone be a crime? Why should honesty be dangerous? He had not crossed a line. Or had he? He did not understand her people's rules. But deep inside, he knew one thing. He did not regret saying those words. Far across the academy, in a grand chamber filled with soft lights, she also could not sleep. She turned on her bed, her face hot, her heart restless. His words kept echoing, simple, yet heavy with meaning. "Because you're mind-blowing." Her chest tightened again. Her kind believed that once the heart reacted, once the body betrayed emotion, a bond had already begun. She should have resisted. She should have stayed away. But she couldn't. Finally, unable to bear it, she slipped out of her chamber. Her steps were soft, her robe trailing behind her. She moved like a shadow through empty halls until she reached the academy garden, the same place where it all began, and he was already there. He sat under the silver-leaf tree, staring up at the glowing branches. He turned quickly when he heard footsteps, surprised to see her walking toward him. "You?" he whispered. She stopped, her face unreadable. "Why are you here at this hour?" He gave a half-smile. "Couldn't sleep. Thought maybe the stars here would help." Her lips pressed tight. She felt the pull of his words again. Simple, human words that carried no lies. She looked down, whispering, "You should not be here. Not after what happened today." The whispers, the guard's warning. "Don't you understand the danger?" He stood slowly, his eyes on her. "I understand, but I don't care." Her eyes widened. "You should care. My people do not forgive bonds with outsiders. They will destroy you." He stepped closer, his voice soft but steady. "Then tell me to leave. Tell me to stay away. From you. And I will." She froze. The words caught in her throat. She wanted to speak them. She wanted to tell him to walk away, to protect him, to protect herself. But when she looked into his eyes, her voice failed. Instead, she whispered, trembling, "Do humans always speak such dangerous words?" He gave a quiet laugh, shaking his head. "Only when we mean them." Her heart pounded. No one in her life had ever dared to speak to her like this. Every compliment she had received before was empty, practiced, given only for status. But this was different. She could feel the truth in him, raw and unpolished. She turned away, covering her face. Her blush deepened, and she whispered, "You don't understand what you've done." "Then explain it to me," he said gently, "because I want to understand." She opened her mouth, but before she could speak, a sharp sound cut through the air. Footsteps. Both of them froze. From the other side of the garden, torches glowed. The shadows of armored figures appeared, moving quickly. Her people's guards. Her breath caught in her throat. "They're looking for me," she whispered. Without thinking, he grabbed her hand. "Come on." They darted behind the silver tree, pressing against the trunk as the guards entered the garden. Their heavy boots crunched against the glowing grass. Voices murmured. She was seen leaving her chamber. She cannot be far. If she's with the human again, the elders will not be merciful. Her chest tightened in fear. If they found her with him, punishment would fall on both of them. She pressed her back to the tree, her hand trembling in his. He leaned close, whispering in her ear, "Stay quiet." The warmth of his breath sent a shiver through her. Her heart beat wildly, not just from fear but from something deeper, something she could not name. The guards passed close. One of them turned, scanning the shadows. For a terrifying moment, his torchlight brushed over the tree. The human held his breath, his hand tightening around hers. She squeezed back, her eyes shut tight. Then the guards moved on, their footsteps fading into the night. She opened her eyes, trembling. They were still holding hands. Their faces were close, too close. She could see the tiny details in his eyes, the steady courage in them. For the first time, she whispered honestly, "You make me feel safe." His chest tightened at her words. He wanted to say more, but the fear in her eyes stopped him. She quickly pulled her hand away and stepped back. "This cannot continue," she whispered. "If they find us again, they will not stop until one of us is gone." He looked at her, his voice firm. "Then let them try." Her heart ached. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to stay by his side, but duty chained her, and fear followed her every step. Before he could speak again, she turned and ran, her robe trailing behind her. She disappeared into the shadows of the academy, leaving him alone once more. He stood under the silver tree, his hand still warm from her touch. He looked up at the stars and whispered to himself, "I don't care about their rules. I won't let this end." But high above in the watchtower, another pair of eyes had seen everything. A messenger ran swiftly to the elders, carrying news that would soon shake both their lives. The secret meeting had not been secret enough. The bond awakens. The academy rose with the first light of dawn, its silver towers glowing as the alien sun climbed the sky. Students filled the halls again, their voices a chorus of whispers, laughter, and footsteps. But for her, the world felt different now. She walked quietly through the corridors, her robe brushing against the shining floor, her heart still carrying the weight of the night before. The memory of his hand in hers burned inside her. The warmth, the courage in his whisper, the steady strength in his eyes, it lingered like fire she could not put out. She tried to steady her breath, but her chest betrayed her with every beat. She knew what it meant. Among her people, emotions were not just feelings, they were signs, sacred signs of a deeper truth. A blush meant awakening, a laugh meant acceptance. A hand held in secret meant the beginning of a bond, and once the bond began, it could not be broken. It was not just love, it was destiny, but destiny with a human? That was forbidden. Her people had rules older than the academy itself. Bonds must only be formed within the clan, never with outsiders, never with humans. Breaking that law meant punishment, not just for her, but for him as well. Yet when she thought of his words, she could not regret anything. Then let them try. He had said it with such boldness, such defiance, that her heart trembled. No one had ever stood for her like that. No one had ever cared. And now she found herself wondering, what if she did not fight the bond? What if she let it grow? But her thoughts were interrupted when a voice called her name. One of her elders stood in the hall, tall and stern, his eyes sharp as blades. "Come with me," he ordered. She followed silently, her head low. He led her into a chamber filled with crystal light. Inside, 3 elders sat in a circle, their robes heavy with ancient symbols. Their faces were unreadable, their eyes piercing. "We have heard troubling whispers," the eldest one spoke. "You were seen with the human again." Her throat tightened. She bowed her head. "It was nothing, a mistake." The second elder leaned forward. "A mistake or something more? Did you laugh with him?" Her eyes widened. The fact that they knew pierced her heart with fear. She tried to speak, but no sound came out. The third elder narrowed his eyes. "And did you blush?" Her chest ached. She could not lie. Lying to the elders was worse than death. Slowly her lips parted. "Yes." The elders exchanged grave looks. The chamber grew colder. "Then the bond has begun," the eldest declared. "And it must be cut before it roots deeper." Her hands trembled. She wanted to protest, to say that it was not real, that it was just a human's careless words. But deep inside she knew it was real. She felt it in every breath and every beat of her heart. "You will stay away from him," the second elder said. "You will not meet him again. If you defy this, both of you will suffer." Tears stung her eyes. She bowed deeply, whispering, "Yes, elders." When she left the chamber, her chest was heavy with chains. She told herself she must obey, that it was the only way to protect him. But the fire of the bond did not fade. Later that evening, she saw him again. He was standing by the academy gate, staring at the stars as if searching for answers. When he noticed her, his face lit up. He walked toward her, but she quickly raised her hand. "Stop," she whispered. He froze, his smile fading. "What's wrong?" Her voice shook. "The elders know. They warned me. They warned us. If we continue, we will both be punished. I cannot let that happen." He stepped closer, his eyes steady. "Punished for what? For telling the truth? For looking at you? For caring?" Her lips trembled. "You don't understand. In my world, once the bond begins, it cannot end. It marks us forever. If they see it, they will destroy us both." He took another step, lowering his voice. "Then let it mark us. Let it stay. I'm not afraid." Her heart shattered. She turned her face away, tears slipping down her cheeks. "But I am," she whispered. For a long moment, silence stretched between them. The stars above burned brighter, watching silently as 2 souls stood on the edge of fate. Then, without warning, he reached out and gently took her hand again. Her breath caught. The warmth of his touch sent a wave through her body. Her bond pulsed stronger now, impossible to deny. She looked up at him, her eyes wide. "Why do you risk so much?" she whispered. He smiled softly. "Because you're worth it." Her heart broke open at those words. She wanted to run. She wanted to stay. She wanted everything and feared everything. But before she could answer, voices echoed from behind the walls. Guards were searching again. She pulled her hand back quickly, fear flashing in her eyes. "Go, please, if they find you here." But he only whispered, firm and steady, "This isn't over." She turned, her tears shining as she disappeared, into the shadows once more. And as the guard's footsteps grew louder, he stood there alone, his heart blazing with a fire he could no longer put out. The bond had awakened, and nothing in the galaxy could undo it. The trial of hearts. The Great Hall of Judgment was unlike any other place in the Academy. Its ceiling stretched high, carved with glowing symbols of ancient law. The walls shimmered with silver stone, and the floor was polished until it reflected every face. At the center stood a circular platform, where those accused were brought to stand before the elders. That morning, the hall was full. Students crowded near the doors, whispering, waiting. Guards in dark robes lined the walls, their spears glowing with faint light, and at the center of it all, two figures stood side by side, the human and the alien girl. He looked calm on the outside, but inside his chest, his heart pounded like thunder. He had never stood before so many eyes, never felt so small under the crushing weight of alien law. But when he glanced at her, her head bowed, her hands trembling, courage steadied him again. The elders sat high upon crystal thrones, their robes heavy with the marks of power. The eldest raised his hand and silence fell across the hall. His voice echoed, deep and cold. You stand accused of breaking sacred law. You, daughter of our clan, have allowed a bond to spark with an outsider. And you, human, have fed that flame with reckless words. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Some shook their heads in disapproval. Others leaned forward in curiosity. Few had ever seen such a trial. The girl's throat tightened. She tried to speak, but her voice broke. It was not my choice, it just happened. The second elder's eyes narrowed. Bonds do not just happen. They are born from the heart, from truth. Do you deny it? Her lips trembled. She could not lie. Slowly, painfully, she whispered, No, I do not deny it. Gasps filled the hall. The human's chest tightened, but pride flickered inside him. She had admitted the truth, even with the weight of the world pressing on her. The third elder turned to him. And you, human. Do you understand what this means? A bond is not a game. It ties life to life, soul to soul. Are you prepared to bear the cost? He lifted his head, his voice steady. I don't know your laws, but I know this. I meant every word I said. I won't take them back, and I won't step away from her. The crowd erupted in shocked murmurs. Some laughed at his boldness, others frowned in anger. The eldest elder struck his staff against the floor. Boom! Silence returned. Then you both leave us no choice, he declared. You will face the trial of hearts. The girl's eyes widened, in fear. She knew what that meant. Few survived such a trial. Guards stepped forward, forming a circle around them. The floor beneath their feet began to glow, lines of light spreading outward until the entire platform shone like a star. The second elder spoke, his voice sharp. The trial will test the truth of your bond. If it is false, it will shatter, and both of you will be broken with it. If it is true, you may survive. But you will be cast out, exiled from this place forever. Her chest ached. Exile meant losing everything. Her people, her future, her place in the clan, her place in... But when she looked at him, she saw no fear in his eyes, only strength, only honesty. The third elder raised his hand. Begin. The platform shifted, and suddenly, they were no longer standing in the hall. Around them rose an illusion, a world of shadows and storms created by the trial itself. Wind howled, lightning cracked, and the ground shook beneath their feet. She gasped, clutching her chest. The trial was inside their minds, testing their hearts, pulling out their deepest fears. Stay with me, he shouted, reaching for her hand. She grabbed it, her fingers shaking. The storm around them roared louder. Dark shapes appeared in the mist, monsters born of fear, claws sharp, eyes glowing. Her voice trembled. If we fall here, it will kill us in the real world. Then we won't fall, he said firmly, pulling her close. Not if we stand together. The first monster lunged. He swung his arm instinctively, striking it down with a burst of light that came from nowhere, born from the bond itself. She gasped, realizing the bond gave them strength when they acted as one. More creatures attacked, surrounding them. Fear clawed at her, but his hand in hers gave her courage. They fought side by side, their movements in perfect rhythm. When she faltered, he pulled her up. When he stumbled, she guided him forward. At last, the storm began to break. The monsters dissolved into smoke. The ground grew steady and light returned. They stood together in the middle of the fading illusion, breathless, but unbroken. And then the trial spoke. Not with words, but with truth that echoed in both their hearts. The bond is real. The storm vanished. They were back in the hall. The crowd was silent, stunned. The glowing lines on the platform faded slowly, leaving only the two of them standing hand in hand, alive. The eldest elder rose to his feet, his voice heavy with judgment. The bond cannot be denied. It has chosen its path. And so, by our law, you are both exiled. You may leave this place but never return. The hall erupted in noise. Some shouted in anger, others whispered in awe. The girl's knees weakened, but the human caught her before she fell. He looked up at the elders, his jaw set. "We don't need your hall, we don't need your law, we have each other." The girl's eyes filled with tears. She had lost her people, her home. But in his arms she felt something stronger than any clan's chains. She felt freedom. The trial of hearts was over, but their journey was only beginning. The escape, the judgment was passed. The elders' voices still echoed in the great hall. "You are exiled. Leave this place, never return." The human stood tall, holding her hand as if it were the only truth left in the galaxy. She clung to him, her heart torn in two. She had lost her home, her family, her name, but she had not lost him. But exile was not as simple as walking away. The moment they stepped down from the glowing platform, the guards moved. Spears glimmered with energy. Shields rose, and their path to the gates was blocked. One guard's voice rang out. "The Elder's mercy spares your lives, but you will not leave freely. We will escort you to the borders, and if you resist, we will strike." He felt her hand tighten in fear. Her people were not only strict, they were merciless. Exile often meant being cast into the wilds, unarmed, surrounded by danger. It was as much a death sentence as it was mercy. He leaned closer to her, whispering, "Stay close. Whatever happens, don't let go." She nodded, her eyes trembling, but fierce. The guards surrounded them and pushed them forward. The Hall of Judgment turned to stone corridors, then to the wide courtyards of the academy. Students watched in silence, their whispers like arrows. Some looked at them with pity, others with disgust, and a few with quiet admiration. "They will never survive," one voice said. "Better this way," another murmured. "Still, no one has ever stood against the elders like that," whispered a student with wide eyes. The human ignored them. He kept his gaze ahead, his hand locked firmly in hers, but inside, his chest burned. He hated how they looked at her, as if she were already lost, already broken. Finally, they reached the outer gates. The sky above was dark, storm clouds gathering, lightning flashing in the distance. Beyond the walls stretched the alien wilderness, mountains sharp like blades, forests glowing with strange light, and creatures that prowled in the shadows. The gay chief guard stopped. His face was hard as stone. "This is where your path ends. Cross this gate and you are no longer one of us. You are nothing." The girl's heart cracked at those words. She had been raised to honor her clan, to carry its name with pride, and now in one breath they had stripped it all away. But when she felt the human squeeze her hand, warmth steadied her again. She lifted her head, meeting the guard's eyes. For the first time, she spoke with defiance. "I am not nothing. Not anymore." The guard's jaw tightened. He stepped aside. The gates opened with a deep rumble, revealing the storming world beyond. They stepped forward together. But before they could cross fully, a sharp cry rang out. "Stop them!" It was the same guard who had threatened him before, the one who had watched them in the garden. His eyes burned with fury. "Exile is too merciful for a human who dares to bond with her. Kill him!" In an instant, chaos broke out. Several guards charged forward, their weapons raised. The human pulled her behind him. "Run!" he shouted. They sprinted through the gates as lightning cracked across the sky. Guards followed, their footsteps pounding like thunder. Energy spears flew, striking the ground around them with bursts of light. The girl gasped, stumbling, but he grabbed her arm, pulling her onward. "Don't stop!" They dashed down the rocky path beyond the city walls. The storm howled, rain pouring in sheets. Wind tore at their clothes, but still they ran. Behind them, the guards shouted, their glowing armor cutting through the rain. Up. Ahead, the path split, one way into the forest of glowing trees, the other into the jagged mountains. Which way? He yelled over the storm. The forest, she cried. The mountains are death. They plunged into the trees. The forest glowed eerily, leaves shimmering with pale light, creatures moving in the shadows. Strange cries echoed, but the thick foliage gave them cover. They hid behind a massive root, breathing hard. She pressed a hand to her chest, her heart racing. They won't stop. They'll hunt us until one of us is gone. He shook his head, his eyes blazing. Then we'll keep running. Together. Tears stung her eyes. She wanted to tell him the truth, that she feared he would die for her, that she feared the bond had cursed him. But when she looked into his face, she saw no fear, only determination. She whispered, trembling, "Why are you not afraid?" He smiled faintly, brushing rain from his face. "Because I'm with you, and that makes me stronger than all of them." Her breath caught. Her bond pulsed again, stronger, filling her with warmth even in the storm. For the first time since the judgment, she felt hope. But their moment was cut short. The forest behind them lit up, torches, glowing weapons, shadows moving fast. The guards had tracked them. He grabbed her hand again. "Come on, this isn't over." They broke from the root and ran deeper into the forest, their figures vanishing into the storm. Behind them, the guards shouted, but the trees swallowed the sound. The escape had begun, and with it, a new life. One filled with danger, but also with a bond that no law could destroy. Love against the stars. The forest stretched endlessly, glowing leaves lighting the path as the storm raged above. Rain dripped from the branches, soaking them both. Their breaths came heavy, their legs weak, but they did not stop. Behind them, the voices of the guards echoed faintly, still hunting, still chasing. At last, they reached the edge of the forest. The trees ended suddenly, opening into a high cliff that dropped into a vast canyon below. The storm clouds parted, for a moment revealing the endless stars above, shining like 1,000 eyes watching. She stumbled to her knees, clutching her chest, her robe torn from the run. We can't keep running," she gasped. "They'll catch us. It's only a matter of time." The human stood at the edge of the cliff looking down at the impossible drop. The canyon was deep, filled with mist that swirled like a living thing. No path led down. No bridge crossed it. Beyond, the horizon stretched forever, mountains dark and sharp, stars gleaming overhead. He turned back to her, his face pale but determined. "Then we make our stand here." Her eyes widened. "Here? Against them? You'll die." He stepped closer, kneeling before her. His hand brushed her wet hair from her face, his voice low but steady. "I'd rather die fighting with you than live a safe life without you." Her heart trembled. The bond inside her pulsed stronger, flooding her chest with warmth even as fear clawed at her. Tears mixed with the rain on her cheeks. "Why do you keep risking everything for me?" she whispered. He gave a small, broken smile. "Because when I look at you, I don't see an alien. I see the only person who's ever made me feel alive." She gasped softly, her breath stolen. No one in her life, no elder, no clan, no friend, had ever spoken words like that. In his voice she heard no duty, no law, only truth. Before she could answer, the forest behind them erupted with light. The guards burst through the trees, their glowing spears raised, their armor shining. "There," one shouted. "Don't. Let them escape," another roared. She stood quickly, her hands shaking. The guards formed a line, blocking the forest's edge. The cliff was at their backs, the storm above, the canyon below. They were trapped. Her chest heaved. "It's over," she whispered, her voice breaking. But the human turned, taking her hands in his. His grip was firm, his eyes blazing with courage. "No, it's just beginning." She looked into his eyes, her tears falling freely now. "If we stay, they'll kill you. If we leap, we may die." He stepped closer, pressing his forehead against hers. "If you're with me, anywhere we fall will feel like home." Her breath caught. The bond between them surged like fire, stronger than ever before. For a moment, the storm seemed to quiet, the stars above shining brighter, as if the universe itself leaned closer to witness them. "Behind," the guard shouted, drawing closer. "Seize them!" The human pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her trembling body. "Trust me," he whispered. Her heart raced. Fear and hope clashed inside her. She shut her eyes, her voice breaking. "I trust you." And with that, he stepped back and leapt from the cliff. The world seemed to stop. The wind roared in their ears as they fell, the canyon mist rushing up to meet them. She buried her face against his chest, her arms clinging tightly. His embrace held her steady, unshaken, as if nothing could break them apart. For a heartbeat, it felt like death. For the next, it felt like freedom. And then, something impossible happened. The bond flared with light, surrounding them in a glowing aura. The mist below parted, as if the canyon itself obeyed the bond's power. Instead of crashing into stone, they drifted, slowed by unseen hands, carried by the force of what had awakened inside them. They landed gently on the canyon floor, their feet touching solid ground as if they had never fallen at all. She opened her eyes in shock, gasping at the light still glowing faintly around them. "The bond, it saved us," she whispered. He smiled, still holding her. "No, you saved us. Both of us." Above, the guard stood frozen at the cliff's edge, staring down in disbelief. None dared to follow, none dared to leap. For the first time, their power seemed weak, their laws powerless. She looked up at the sky through the canyon mist, the stars shining brighter now than ever. She took his hand, her voice steady at last. "They will never stop hunting us." "Then let them try," he said, pulling her close. "Because as long as I have you, they'll never win." She pressed her forehead against his chest, her tears turning into a smile. The bond glowed softly between them, invisible to the world but unbreakable. Together they turned and walked deeper into the canyon, away from the world that had cast them out, toward a future unknown, but theirs alone. Above them, the storm broke. The stars spread across the sky, endless and eternal. And under that light, a human and an alien walked side by side, bound not by law, but by love strong enough to challenge the galaxy itself. Their story had only just begun.